In this video, we're going to talk about domain and range of a graph, and we're going to express it in interval notation. So interval notation, we want to remember that round means not including those endpoints, and the square means including endpoints. So some review on interval notation. Also, domain is the x's, or the independent, and then range are the y's, the dependent. So for domain, we're going to look horizontally. And range, we're going to look at the dependent variables, the output. We're going to look vertically on the graph and see what numbers. So looking at this first graph, after reviewing all of those terms, we want to find the domain and the range. So we want to figure out the smallest x value to the highest x value for the domain first. So looking along the x-axis for domain, here's our x-axis. We want to figure out what x values are included in the domain. So looking at this graph, if we trace it, we're starting at an x value that looks like it's somewhere between 0 and -8. So somewhere close to, say, like -4. It looks about halfway. And then we're going through, and the x values, we're stopping at a little bit less than 8. So to express this in interval notation, this first point here, this x value, is maybe somewhere like so halfway between 0 and -8 would be -4, but we're not quite there. That y value or x value is not quite at -4. So we could call it maybe like -3.9. And since it's a closed circle, we're going to include that in our domain. If it was an open circle, we would not include it. So closed circle is going to give us the included. Open circle at an endpoint would be a round parentheses. So our domain is -3.9, and then all the way up to this x value is close to being 8, but not quite there. So this closed circle, maybe we could call that 7.9 included. So domain, you're looking left to right, horizontally. Now we're going to look at the range, which is going to be vertically. We're going to look from down to up to find the range. So here is where I would say the lowest y value is. And up here we have some higher y values. So we need to evaluate what those y values would be. So we have our graph is 0 to -8. I would call this one -4. And I would say that's where our range dips down the lowest. -4, we have y values there. They're not open circles, so we're including that. Up to the highest y value is just about 8 included. So there's our first graph. Let's look at another graph and find the domain and range. So domain, we're looking left to right. We're looking horizontally. The first x value is at 0, and this graph goes all the way over to, well, the arrow says that it keeps going. So we don't see where the graph stops. So we're going to say 0 included, and that arrow at the end of our graph indicates that it's going to keep going. We just don't get to see it. So it's going to keep going out and up. So it's going to go on to x is infinity. And we never include infinity. We always do a round parentheses. Since we can't plug it in and test it, we never get to see infinity. It's just a concept. We put a round parentheses on it. All right, now let's compare that to the range. We're going to look down to up. So the lowest y value that I see is right at 0. So we're going to include that. It's on 0. And then again, this arrow indicates it's going to keep going up and over forever. So since it's going up forever, it's going up to infinity. And we never include infinities. We always do a round parentheses since we can't test them or see that end point.